is Shong. I am the DFL co-chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs Division. My colleague, Republican chair, co-chair Mathis had a conflict, so he can join us this afternoon. That said, today marks a historic moment for Minnesota, especially for our Special Guerrilla Unit veterans. As part of the Veterans and Military Affairs Finance and Policy Budget Bill, we are proud to include a provision that officially recognizes the service Special Guerrilla Units who fought alongside U.S. forces during the secret war in Laos. We will be passing this bill this afternoon with bipartisan support in the House. A similar version was passed off the Senate floor last week. This recognition has been decades in the making. For far too long, these veterans have been overlooked, left out of textbooks, excluded from formal honors, and denied full measure of gratitude they earned. But today we say their service matters, their sacrifice matters, their story is American history. This provision is personal to me as the son and grandson of Hmong refugee soldiers. I know the cost of war and the cost of being erased from its narrative. And so recognizing the SGUs isn't just symbolic, it's a long overdue act of respect and a critical step toward equitable veteran support. To every SGU veteran and their family, this moment is for you. Minnesota sees you, Minnesota honors you, and Minnesota stands with you together across party lines. And next is we will have the Minnesota Asian Pacific Caucus Chair, Representative Ethan Cha, to speak.
Welcome, everyone. My name is State Representative Ethan Cha, and I represent 47B in the House of Representatives. I am the chief author of this bill, which is House File 2444 in the Veterans Committee, to recognize SGU veterans who served in Laos during 1961 to 1975. This bill is to restore the spirit, the dignity, and the honor of these men that have not been recognized for too long. It has been 50 years since we came to the United States of America, and it is time that we recognize and honor these brave men who put their lives on the line for democracy in a time when democracy was hope for those in Southeast Asia. This bill is just not a bill. This bill is a beacon of hope. This bill is a beacon of honor, not only for Minnesotans, but for all Hmong Americans in the United States of America. For every Hmong American in the United States of America is here because of the secret war of Laos. For every Laotian person that is in the United States of America is because of the secret war of Laos that they are here. That we must honor our elders. We must honor these heroes. That what this bill says is what they deserve, and it's the least we can do as the state of Minnesota to signify to other states that this is the path to move forward and to honor what it means to be American. Thank you. And next is, I want to introduce Yang Lee. Yang Lee is a T-28 pilot trained by the United States Air Force who's flown over 45 sorties in a T-28. When he approaches this podium, you will see that he still is wearing his uniform from 1975. Yang Lee, you have the podium.
Good afternoon, my comrade and all my friends. It's good to be here for today. My name is Ya Lee. I'm one of the Hmong 37 pilots. And right now, we have 10 of us left in the United States. two living here in Minnesota. I'm so happy to be here. I think it's time for the House and the Senate. They recognize that Hmong not just carry the scar of war, but the burden of being forgotten. It's time that you come across this line, the final line. If it doesn't pass this time, I think it's going to be very rough for many of us, because I think a lot of you are older than me. A few of you younger than me. I'm 72. So I think it's gonna that bill going to come around again. It's going to be very difficult. Good to be here and good to speak to all of you.
And next is we will have Dr. Lee Shong from the Center for Hmong Studies at Concordia University.
Representatives, veterans, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lee Shong. I'm the director of the Center for Hmong Studies. I was asked to talk about the history, history of Laos. So Laos, a landlocked country at the heart of Southeast Asia, share a border with China, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, and Burma. And during the Cold War, the United States feared that if Laos fell to communism, neighboring countries would follow, what was then called the domino theory. To preserve Laos neutrality, a major international agreement was signed in 1954 and 1962, the Geneva Declarations. The United States, the Soviet Union, North Vietnam, and 10 other countries agreed to prohibit all foreign troops and military personnel from operating in Laos. The U.S. and its allies honored that agreement by withdrawing the military personnel, but the North Vietnamese army did not. Thousands of North Vietnamese army troops remained in Laos, using the territory to bypass borders and threaten American positions in South Vietnam. Because U.S. cannot officially station troops in Laos, yet still needed to counter the growing North Vietnamese threat, a covert force was required. The CIA turned to the Hmong people, skilled fighters who knew the rugged mountains of northern Laos. And in the south, the CIA also recruited the Lao, the Montagnard, and other ethnic minorities. These recruits formed what was known as the Special Guerrilla Unit. They are trained, fed, clothed, and armed by the CIA. Working alongside these SGUs were American servicemen who had formerly left the U.S. military so they could operate in Laos without breaching the Geneva Agreements. This covert assignments process was known as sheep dipping. Though technically not U.S. soldiers at the time, they served under the direction of the United States President, U.S. Ambassador in Laos, and the CIA. In 1969, the U.S. Foreign Relations Committee determined that this was no longer just an intelligence operation. The scale of funding and manpower meant it was, in fact, a full-scale military operation, and the SGUs were Americans' army in Laos. To understand the toll of this secret war, we must hear the words of Mr. Pop Buell from the International Voluntary Services. In 1968, he said, "A short time ago, we rounded up 300 fresh recruits. 30% were 14 years old or less. 10 of them were only 10 years old. Another 30% were 15 or 16. The remaining 40% were 45 or older. Where were the ones in between? I tell you, they're all dead." Our community paid a heavy price. Over 80,000 Hmong lives were lost, 35,000 during the war, another 50,000 after 1975. Many Lao soldiers were also sent to re-education camps, including the King of Laos. Some never returned. Some of them are here as well who came from the re-education camp. The communists know that we were Americans' hands, arms, feet, and mouth. They believe they must kill all soldiers, farmers, and children. Former CIA Director William Colby acknowledged this sacrifice in 1996, where he says, for 10 years, Vang Pao's soldiers held the growing North Vietnamese forces to approximately the same battle line they held in 1962. The 70,000 North Vietnamese engaged in Laos were not available to fight Americans in South Vietnam. And as former Director Richard Helm put it, every NVA soldier in Laos was one less enemy in South Vietnam. Our story is one of courage, loss, and loyalty. It is time the world heard it, not as a footnote in history, but as a chapter that shapes the outcome of a global conflict. The passage of this bill will ensure that our Hmong and Lao veterans will not be forgotten. People like Ligon Tao, who was drafted when he was 11 years old, John Da Yan, who was 12 years old when he joined, Su Vang, who was 12 years old, Bat Cao Va, who was 13, and Va Jia, who was 12 years old. So it's utterly important for us to pass this bill today, and I thank all of the representatives for your support and for standing behind the bill. Thank you. And next we have Lieutenant Colonel Tian Yang, and another claim to fame with him is he was my classmate at the University of Minnesota. He went on doing better things. So, Colonel Tian.
Good afternoon. I represent the children of the SGU. It is very personal, so I have very emotional, but please forgive me. So my name is Tu Yang. I am a retired lieutenant colonel of the United States Army. I served 28 years on active duty with combat deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan during OIF and OEF. Today, I call upon the Minnesota House of Representatives to support HF 2444. When my father, the late Commandant or Major Yang Ki, came to the United States after the fall of Laos, he was shocked and confused why Americans did not know about his service to the United States. He and his brother-in-arms, the many Hmong, Laos, and other ethnic minority have fought valiantly for the United States during the Secret War. He was severely wounded in action. Although he survived the war, he lost 50% the use of his right arm. Unfortunately, my father passed away 13 years ago and will not be able to see his dream of being recognized as a veteran. However, there are still SGU, as you could see here. Although the number are dwindling yearly, waiting for the day of recognition. It has been 50 years, and it is time to recognize the SGU, the Hmong, the Lao, and the other ethnic minority who have faithfully served the United States to fight against communism as veterans. The Senate has already passed their bill unanimously. Therefore, I call upon the Minnesota House of Representatives to support HF 2444. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for the great service of your great service to the state of Minnesota. And I will be followed by Representative Goldie Hurt.
Thank you. So thank you all for being here today. Most of my colleagues and the guests today have already spoken about the significance of today. I will just share a couple of quick things about this bill that is within the veterans, but specifically to the SGU bill. It creates a new definition of Chapter 197 for veterans, which is the veterans of the secret war in Laos. It also creates criteria for eligibility for benefits and privileges, and it allows the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs to verify persons to have veteran status. This also establishes a 12-member task force to advise the verification process. And then it also goes on to list the benefits and privileges, which includes things like veterans designation and driver's license and state IDs, purchase of grave markers, honor guard, state veterans cemeteries, veterans preferences, permissive preference for veterans private employment, quarters for meetings, and a couple of other ones. But we are very thankful and grateful for our Deputy Commissioner who worked very closely with us on this bill to ensure that it is something that the state could pass and could fiscally support. And also thank you to all of the stakeholders and members who participated with us in ensuring that this is a bill that represents all of the SGU veterans who serve valiantly for this country and for freedom. And so with that, I will open it up for questions for the members of the press.
Why did it take so long?
We wish that it wouldn't have taken so long. I think that, when a war is classified as secret, it is really difficult to have unclassified documents so that we can validate the service of the individuals, and that this bill had actually been introduced many bienniums before. This is not the first time it has been in front of the legislature, and it is now that we have a momentum behind really understanding of the participation of the SGU veterans, but also that having a Minnesota Asian Pacific caucus of 10 members, and both have representation in the House and the Senate, that has allowed us to be able to put the bill forward and work with our colleagues to help them understand the significance of it.
I got honorary citizenship in the U.S. 25 years ago or something like that, but there was never any serious talk of it doing anything like this. And even in California, where the Hmong population is maybe higher, but not as by a percentage as it is in Minnesota, they haven't done this. Does this mean to set a model for, say, Wisconsin and California, or just the entire country?
We would hope so. I mean, there are Hmong people in many of the United States, and so our hope is that all states start to understand. And I will just do a small connection to Representative Samira's bill that we passed last biennium around ethnic studies, and that when we don't have the education system that actually allows us to be able to understand the diverse communities that live here, it makes it very difficult for people to understand all the ways in which our country is richer and better because of it. And so I think that all of the ways in which we have been able to look at the convergence of different types of bills have created the correct environment for us to pass this bill. And our hope is that other states will follow. I don't know if Director Lee Shong wants to add anything to that. Okay.
I wonder, I don't know who would speak on his behalf, but General Bang Pao died about 14 years ago, and I wonder what he would think about this.
General, what do we think of it? Yes, you.
It would be appreciative all the time if our elected official in elected government put this earlier. But however, it is not late. Start today is better than tomorrow. So we appreciate the effort of the state legislators that help putting our request together.
Representative Chow will also add to that.
I just want to add that if General Powell, he is here. He is in our hearts and in our spirits, and they all here. All the SGUs and the people that lost their lives trying to find a better life for themselves, and those that didn't make it. We've lost so many. I've lost my father. Yesterday, I lost my stepfather. We've lost a lot of grandpas. But you know what? They're all here with us in spirit. So thank you.
Yes, Mitch.
Yeah, do we have an exact number of how many veterans are still alive today?
We don't have an exact number because and I hope that through our verification process through the task force that we'll be able to get better numbers. But we have approximately, we know that there's less than 1,000 left. But Lipa, do you want to add to that?
Yes, in talking to all of the veterans group, it is estimated about 1,000 or so are left, and so not many of the veterans are left.
In Minnesota.
Yeah, in Minnesota.
I just didn't answer. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the co-chair, Bliss, and co-vice chair Olson, and the 25 Republican signatures on this bill. This is a bipartisan bill, you know, and there will be more signatures as we move forward. But I want to acknowledge my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who wholeheartedly, genuinely put their signatures on this bill, all 25 of them. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I wonder if you could explain the impact of the bill for the rest of the veterans here in Minnesota.
I think that I went over a little bit already, is that there, we hope, because of the fiscal outlook for the state, that there is no monetary benefit to it, but our veterans have always told us it was just the recognition of their service. And so we did our best to ensure that they would have some of the rights and privileges, the benefits and privileges that our department, our MDVA could be able to support. And so as I stated earlier, it'll be some of the things that include like the use of the quarters that is available through MDVA, certified vital records, renewal of professional licenses, and honor and remember flags, and a couple of the other things that I listed earlier. But that is the actual, what we would call the benefits and privileges that'll be available to them. But the fact that they can hold their heads high and say that they are now recognized as veterans in the state of Minnesota for the service during the Secret War. I think that is what we would like to hold up as the most important thing to our veterans.
We'll take one more question, and the lady in the back.
Her and then Care Levin, right?
Okay.
A couple quick things. My first question is, what were some of the challenges, I know it's a bipartisan bill, but what were some of the challenges getting some of your colleagues on board? And then my second question is, if this were to pass, what's next? I know you mentioned that there's kind of a lack of education around this. Do you hope to maybe broaden this out once it gets the recognition, maybe work to get some of this information like in public schools?
Take a second, take her first. What was the challenge? The challenge is education, is about educating our colleagues. But most importantly, which isn't a challenge, and is what all good legislators should do, is make that friendship with your colleagues across the aisle. Because the work at the House of Representatives takes everyone, all 134. Thank you.
What was the second part of your question? My apologies.
Yeah, if this were to pass today, what's next? I know you mentioned that there's a lack of education of people knowing. Do you hope to maybe introduce some form of legislation that would educate more people about this in schools, or?
I think that there's many things, and it would be something that maybe for another discussion, but I think that we can't look at bills as like an individual standalone thing. We look at it as an intersection of all of the different ways, whether it is how do we honor our veterans, and not just what does it mean for the SGU veterans, but we do have a lot of other allied forces, right? And like, what does it mean when the United States gets into conflict, international conflicts? What does it mean when we also marry education with the work that we are doing, so that we do educate our students in Minnesota about the diversity and how everyone ends up here? And that's not just for the Southeast Asian community. We have large East African communities. We have, South Asian communities that are here, and they're all here. We're all here for different reasons, and so education, robust education, is very important for that. And so there's not one comprehensive way to look at it, but as a diverse legislature, we all bring forward something that we think will add on to really helping our communities understand each other better. We'll have one more question. Cara Levin had a question, was it?
That was Cara Levin that just answered.
Oh, that was just, okay. So I think that we can wrap up if there are no further questions, but I will just say that to the question, okay, well, yeah.
What I fixed to ask, I think, is on most of you guys' mind. After this bill passed, where you going to get your DD-14? Your DD-14 is will get you to have your driver license, to have veterans. You got to have, to pass an interview with the task force. So I kind of,
Yeah,
I know we have those, I read those. It just, I wonder how they will process from here.
Yeah, and so, bây giờ ha, cô thọ, ta chỉ nói, bây giờ tế là nó còn nó bây giờ press new bây giờ bây giờ hàng gì đó có một lần đầu dạng cứ bây giờ new task force chính yếu sau ha chính yếu ở ha lối so bây giờ sao mà cho họ cho lối họ on đây bao nhiêu chance to cho lối sĩ thẳng okay. So what I will just end with today is that when the question was asked of what would General Vang Pao think. My grandfather was a colonel in the Secret War, and he died. I was just looking at his, some of the records from his death. Is that he died the year before I got elected in 2018. He died in 2017, and what I always remember hearing as a small girl was that we were their dream. And so what I think that he would be very proud of is to see that the dream of what it meant to come to this country, of what it meant to give people new opportunities, for our elders to sacrifice themselves and coming as people who had education and traits and skills in our country, and to come to this country and to become janitors and to become mechanics and to become people who took on jobs that sometimes the community did not value them and did not look at them with respect. And that they did all of those things so that they could pave the way, so that we could become legislators, so that we could do this work. And so I would say that for him, it is the fulfillment of his dream, of what he couldn't even possibly think could be possible. But he wanted to open that door, and we are that possibility. And so this is his dream coming full circle of the day he took on that mantle to fight against communism. We are that dream. And they're finally getting recognition for that. So I thank you all for being here, and we appreciate the time. Is there anything else? Okay, thank you so much.